thank you for coming. We're just thrilled with the strong interest. Over 270 people registered as of a few hours ago. And we have people from all over the United States and even several other countries around the world. I noticed someone registered from the Philippines, for example. And of course, our Canadian neighbors to the north. So my name is Tracy Frisch. I'm the founder of Zero Waste Warren County in upstate New York. We're a small rural county in the foothills of the Adirondack Mountains, in eastern New York near Vermont. And the way this webinar came about is that we had 2 webinars on reuse last year, and they also went national. And Yayoi Kuzumi from Ithaca, from Zero Waste Ithaca, contacted me right after that webinar. We became friends, and she was very interested in doing some kind of webinar on this topic. And so she very ably organized it. I said I would help, and here we are today. So, and this is a very important topic. I have been so angry about a cafe in my area that gives out this kind of stuff. This is plastic. It looks like silverware, but it's plastic. And styrofoam cups, which are now banned in New York as of the 1st of January. And so I'd like to change that, and felt helpless trying to change that myself, even with our Zero Waste group. So I'm hoping that with this webinar, there will be some new energy and new groups, new collaborations amongst people to make some change. I am an organizer at heart, and I always believe that change is possible. And so we will try to work through some of the obstacles in today's webinar in making change on getting rid of single-use disposables in food establishments of all types. I've been asked to say that plastic is the new coal. We'll be sending you a link to a report on that. Waste issues are so often ignored or deprioritized in environmental work and in the climate movement. And we're here to try to change that. One of the things, we've been working on many different issues in our zero waste efforts and our Clean Air Coalition, our Clean Air Action Network. Amongst them is a new garbage processing plant that wants to autoclave, that is cook garbage. And another issue that is important to people across the country, and especially in New York right now, is extended producer responsibility. After the webinar, probably the middle of next week, we'll be sending out the recording, the link to the recording of this webinar, along with some resources. And for those of you in New York, I'll probably also be sending information about a new terrible bill that our governor has introduced on extended producer responsibility. We won't be talking about that today, but we would like to inform you. Okay, so I'd like to thank greeneducation.us for being our technical host, and Jill Danello, who could not be with us, and Edgar Villasenor, who is our very able host, technical host. And also Denaya Shorter of the Berkeley Ecology Center, and Aditi Varshney of the Global Alliance for Incineration Alternatives, who have agreed to help support the webinar. We're very pleased to have you. So now it's before anything else, I just want to say we have such a wide array of people. It's really amazing. Numerous people from zero waste groups in the US and Canada and other sustainability efforts, the US Green Building Council, one of the New York City Solid Waste Advisory Boards, a Vermont Regional Solid Waste Agency, Climate Smart Community Committees, people from colleges and universities and municipal environmental advisory committees, cooperative extension, local governments from Westchester County, New York, to Burbank, California, to Hawaii. People from restaurants, food stores, co-ops in Albany and Ithaca, food trucks, caterers, a vegan network, farms and farming organizations, farmers markets, affordable housing groups, the League of Women Voters, Sierra Club, state level environmental lobby groups, school districts. There's a master composter and others involved with clean water and watershed protection, and a veterinarian, a downtown business association, and finally a Connecticut commissioner for solid food waste. So I want to just mention, if you, yes, what a list. Thank you for coming. And if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching. I found any questions that were posted in the registrations, and we'll be asking them after the presentations. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to introduce Yayoi, the main organizer of this event. Then we're going to go to our first speaker, Tina Soldovieri, and then our second speaker, Martin Bourque. Then we're going to have the question and answer, and Anne-Marie Bonneau, the Zero Waste chef, will be joining us for the Q&A. So thank you again, and let me pass it to Yayoi from Zero Waste Ithaca, and she will introduce herself. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much, Tracy. I'd like to first express my huge sense of debt and gratitude to you. This webinar would have not been possible without your kindness, patience, generosity, and deep expertise about all things solid waste. So thank you so much. My name is Yayoi. I'm the coordinator of Zero Waste Ithaca. I am really excited to have this webinar about single use. It's one of the areas about waste issues that get people started. It's an area where people start thinking about our waste and the mode of our consumptions. Usually people start from the single use, and that bothers them so much that they start exploring the waste issues more. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to advertise our Reduces sticker and program. Locally in Ithaca, we just received a Sustainable Tompkins mini grant. Thank you very much, Sustainable Tompkins and supporters, Finger Lakes Reuse and Cayuga Watershed Network. We are getting started. I hope business will get involved with our efforts. And by the end of the webinar, I hope there will be more people around the world really to start its own Reduces program. And it's a great program to raise awareness. So I just wanted to say that. And we're also working on starting a real glass recycling in Ithaca. Our county doesn't recycle glass in a true way. It's going to Ontario County landfill. So we'd like to take this opportunity to say, if you're interested in getting involved, please email zerowasteithaca@gmail.com. We could use our help and volunteer work. Now, without further ado, let us introduce our exciting guest today. You won't believe what incredible guests we have today. We have our guests from Toronto, Canada, and 2 from Northern California. It's just incredible. So thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. And we're super excited. Thank you. Let me start with Martin Bourque from California, Berkeley, California. Martin is a renowned environmental expert who has led the Ecology Center in Berkeley, California, USA since 2000. Under Martin's leadership, the Ecology Center operates the nation's first and longest running curbside recycling program. Wow, pioneers zero waste policy solutions at the local level that has national and international implications. Martin has spearheaded a number of innovative efforts such as Berkeley Food Policy Council, the Berkeley Climate Action Coalition, California Alliance of Farmers Market, Market Watch, which is electronic food stamp access and incentives at farmers markets, and nation's first soda tax. Martin connects the local with global and has advised public policy at the local, state, national levels, and is engaged in the international partners fighting plastic pollution across the globe. Martin pioneered GPS tracking of scrap plastic exports and has been part of international policy processes such as Basel Convention of Waste Trade. By linking local grassroots grit with highly competent program implementation and effective policy advocacy, Martin has led the Ecology Center to become a high-impact engine for change. Martin has been featured in numerous films, documentaries, including Baguette, The Story of Plastic, the Netflix series Broken Recycling Sham, and is trusted source for news agencies from Los Angeles Times to the Sacramento Bee to the New York Times and The Guardian. Wow, thank you for being here. It's incredible. And I just wanted to mention that Berkeley has one of the most advanced single-use ordinances in the country, and his Alameda County has enlightened health codes for the COVID and reusables. And reusables are actually encouraged in his area, which is based on science. We hope that we can hear more about this from Martin today, and we also hope that the message gets across to our county reps, and so that we can get Ithaca Reduces program off the ground. Okay. So now let me introduce Anne-Marie, also known as Zero Waste Chef. She is a cookbook author, blogger, and speaker. Concerned with the devastating impact of plastic pollution on our ocean and wildlife, Anne-Marie cut all plastic to speak of from her life in 2011. Because she stopped buying food packaged in shiny plastic packages, she began making most staples herself. This led her to her obsessions with fermentations, and she prepares, among many foods, kimchi, dill pickles, kombucha, mead, ginger beer, etc., etc. She also traded in her store-bought active dry yeast for wild yeast, and today bakes sourdough bread using her sourdough starter, which she named Eleanor. Anne-Marie believes passionately that a lower impact lifestyle leads to a more enjoyable one filled with delicious, nutritious food. Anne-Marie is a wildly popular blog, has a wildly popular blog, Zero Waste Chef, and has been featured in BuzzFeed, Tree Hugger, Mashable, and other publications. In addition to writing her blog, Anne-Marie teaches fermentation sourdough bread making classes in Northern California. Thank you so much for joining us, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much for responding to, to be with us today at our last minute request. I really, really appreciate that. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Yoi.
So we'd like to pass on the baton to you now. Yes, thank you.
No, okay.
Could you please introduce Tina? Yes, please.
Sure.
Thank
So
you.
I met Tina in 2020, right before all hell broke loose. I went to speak with for Ronci Reduces. So Tina Soldovieri of Canada Reduces is a gutsy German immigrant to Canada, fed up with the deluge of single plastics and worried about the plight of the planet. She decided to do something about it. In 2019, she started a campaign called Ronci Reduces in her Toronto neighborhood of Roncesvalles. The program asks local businesses to place a BYOC sticker in their windows to indicate that they allow customers to bring their own containers in place of throwaway packaging. So take it away, Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for this introduction, Anne-Marie. Thank you to Zero Waste Ithaca, and of course to Edgar too. I also want to acknowledge that I'm speaking today to you from the traditional territories of the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe First Nations. Toronto is located on the land of the dish with one spoon, a treaty of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy that binds everyone who lives, plays, and works on this land to share it, to treat it with respect and responsibility, and make sure that the dish is never empty for generations of living beings to come. And it's really the best call for sustainability that I can think of. And now I'm going to start sharing my screen so I can show you my slides, and you get to see some of Toronto. Okay, beginning, there we go. So yeah, I'm a mother of three, and I work for the Hyde Park Nature Center in Toronto. But I'm here as a volunteer for the neighborhood initiative Ronti Reduces. Rontisvales, and here's our group. Some of our group, we are a few more, but this is most of them. Rontisvales is a pretty small West End neighborhood in Toronto. Some call it Ronti for short, and that's where the name comes from. It has a population around 15,000 people, and the main street where all the shopping happens and all the plastic comes from, well, not all the plastic, it comes from other areas too, but the main street where the shopping happens is about 1.3 miles long. So we started in 2019 as a group of neighbors and friends worried about the amount of plastic we accumulate in our households. Of course, we have all heard about the tremendous problems plastic causes. Plastic simply does not go away because plastic actually does not recycle well. Most of the plastic that we consume on a daily basis does not get recycled. It ends in our landfills and will survive us for hundreds of years and more. Single-use plastics we use for our food is almost always new virgin plastic made from fossil fuels. And if all of us, 7 billion people and more, use just a couple of single-use items every day, it's obvious that this will choke our planet. So it's pretty clear. We need, and I know that you're here for that reason, we need to stop making more, and we need to reuse what we have. We need to grow a culture of and a mentality of reuse. And that is why our goal at Ronti Reduces is to reduce single-use plastics and packaging in our neighborhood by inspiring businesses and consumers to do this together. Businesses display, you can see it here, a few storefronts. Businesses display our Ronti Reduces sticker, and this way welcome people to bring their own reusable bags and containers as much as possible. We came up with this sticker in order to make it easier for people to start to BYO, to bring their own, whether it's reusable coffee cups, water bottles, produce bags, cloth bags for bread and bulk food, containers for takeout food, deli items like cheese or fish or meat, and even jars and bottles for soaps and detergents or oils and vinegar. The idea is to make shopping with your own reusable bags and containers more mainstream so that people don't have to feel hesitant or nervous about it. And this is a photo of this month's refill bulk shopping list and equipment in our house. It's not staged, it's a true photo. And I'm sure you can imagine the pile of single-use plastic packaging that was avoided by reusing our jar and bulk bag collection on just this one single trip. Why did we make it a local initiative, just Rontisvales? There are actually a lot of benefits if you focus on your own neighborhood or your area or your town. It feels manageable. It's not too big. It's not too overwhelming for volunteers. You get to know neighbors and neighborhood businesses. You build community. And even if it's small, it's more visible than if we would have stickers all over Toronto. And you benefit yourself instantly because it makes your own low waste shopping easier. So when I go to our local sushi place with my container and ask the guy, could you please put my order in this container? And he says, sure. Yeah, that does feel good, and it makes it a lot easier if it is more mainstream. You get to see, another good thing is you get to see willingness in people and not only frustration, and you get to see some change happen. So during the first 6 months, we in 2019, we basically went up and down our shopping strip, which is, as I said, Roncesvalles Avenue, and asked businesses if they wanted to participate. And this was not a fast process. We had to visit many businesses 2, 3, 4 times until we were able to speak to the manager, and the manager had to ask the owner and so on. So, but very few businesses said no right away, but many were pretty hesitant in the beginning. It did take some time and convincing and coming back at times when there were not a lot of people in the store. But once we had a few businesses participating on one block, businesses became less reluctant. In return, we offered them to promote them on our social media and at a public event. And I'll talk about that in a minute. We never just left the sticker with them to think about it. We only gave them the sticker when they were ready to really stick it in their window. The final step was then to take a photo and post about them and thank them on social media. Eventually, some businesses also reached out to us, even some that don't sell food or drinks or wanted to participate in other ways. For example, refilling prescription bottles or explaining their plastic-free shipping procedures, or a music school that did single-use plastic cups and bought reusable cups for their students. Some businesses were inspired by Run to Reduces, like this owner on the left of the local hardware store, who started offering a refill station for soaps and detergent. And today we actually have 3 refill stations in stores on Roncesvalles, including one new bulk food store where you can get oils and vinegar, honey, maple syrup, and more, all in your own bags and containers. So that's basically the first step to connect with these businesses. And it does take time, but we got pretty far. We got, I think in 2019, we had over 70 businesses on our list, and that had stickers. The second step is, and that's actually equally important, was to spread the news about the initiative. The sticker is actually not very big. It's just 5 inch in diameter, and the purpose is mostly for stores and restaurants to display their commitment. But if people don't know about it, they likely won't notice if they walk into their stores. So with our limited volunteer power of around 10 people, we started reaching out to the people in our neighborhood in a bunch of different ways. And I always tell people who start a Reduces group, it's all make it your own. So this is not like, this is how you have to do it. It's just to give you some ideas. And it really depends on the volunteer power you have. So for World Environment Day, we organized an evening at our local cinema. We showed the film, The Clean Bin Project. By the way, an excellent film. I bet most of you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, it's a lot of fun. It's a journey of a couple that tries to have no waste for a year. We invited a waste specialist from the city of Toronto. And of course, we also used the evening to introduce Run to Reduces. And we had a slideshow of all participating businesses on our street. The cinema is really small. It has only 240 seats, but it was still cool to fill them up with curious neighbors. And we also invited local schools to 2 free school screenings on the next day. We connected with the schools in other ways too. We offered waste reduction workshops at local elementary and middle schools, and invited students to participate in a poster and short film contest about plastic waste reduction. And we actually received over 150 posters. And you can see some of the winners here. And I especially like the blue whale. And of course, the jellyfish. Each winner received a zero waste ice cream party with ice cream from our local ice cream store for their entire class. And students only had to bring their own reusable bowl, cutlery, and napkins. And if you want, you can watch the winning film on our website. It's at the bottom of our homepage. It's 2 minutes long and it's called, Is It a Good Deal for Nature? It's really, really cute. It's amazing what those grade 5s made with it, and definitely worth watching. Finally, we also did hang up posters in the neighborhood and had a mailbox flyer drop of 3,000 flyers with a list of all participating restaurants, grocery stores, and coffee shops. There you are, Anne-Marie. Our last public in-person event, except for some small cleanups and market tables, was right before the pandemic in March 2020, when Zero Waste Chef came to Toronto. It was amazing to have her speak and about zero waste cooking, and we had a really good time. While we never had a plan to spread outside our neighborhood, it just happened. We got some media coverage from newspapers, radio, and television, and this is how other people heard about us and approached us that they wanted to bring this initiative to their area. 19 neighborhoods in Toronto now have their own sticker design, as well as 6 towns and cities in Ontario, including our capital, Ottawa. And last year, a dedicated group started BYO Vancouver. And yeah, Zero Waste Chef is here to talk later about Silicon Valley Reduces. Stephanie Miller from Zero Waste Living the 80-20 Way started DC Reduces. And here's Ithaca Reduces. So it's really, really, really cool and amazing to see a lot of groups bringing this initiative and moving it forward. So all this expansion, plus the very, very long downtime during the pandemic, is what made us finally create a website where people find tips and information. It's called Canada Reduces, one word, .ca. And yeah, if you want to check it out, feel free. It has also all of our flyers and a lot of information how to start a group. We also got a lot of friendly support. The Roncesvalles BIA, which is like the business association, the business improvement area, helped us with printing flyers and stickers, and they let us use their bus shelter poster on Roncesvalles. So that poster was up for like, I think 2 or 3 months in 2020, which was really nice to have. The City of Toronto invited us as panelists to a webinar about their single-use takeaway items reduction strategy. Very long word. And this brings me to an important topic, which is city and health regulations around personal containers. So when we first started, a good number of businesses said that they were worried about possible Toronto public health restrictions. People thought that there was a bylaw against it. So Debbie, one of our members, got in touch with Toronto Public Health, and it turned out that they actually allow it. They said it's up to the businesses to decide whether they accept personal containers or let people refill their bulk bags. That was not only important for us to know, but also for the businesses. And even during the pandemic, Toronto Public Health never changed this regulation. Of course, I'm aware that it's not like that everywhere. I know other municipalities have problems, more problems. In BC, for example, in British Columbia, in order to qualify for what is called reusable container service, businesses must contact their environmental health officer at Vancouver Coastal Health first. But that did not stop a dedicated group to start BYO Vancouver. And to help businesses implement BYO in their establishments, they even created this poster about how to safely handle usable containers. And then came the pandemic. When the pandemic hit for the first 6 months of 2020, almost everyone stopped accepting reusables. Understandably, businesses worried about possible contamination and did not want to deal with the reusable containers and bags anymore. And many people still feel it's not the right time to bring personal containers into a restaurant. It's almost as if COVID has become an excuse not to worry about plastic anymore. However, international scientists and health experts, including the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, released official statements in the summer of 2020 about the safety of reusables during COVID-19, and that surface transmission is actually not a problem. Reusing and BYO is safe. And in 2021, many, but not all, businesses in our area started allowing reusable containers again. So we have a good amount right now, over 40 that officially accept reusables, but then some don't want to do it. We have a bakery that accepts reusable bags and one bakery that only packs everything in plastic bags. We have one health food store with a bulk section where you can bring your bags, and the other one only wants plastic bags. So you have to really look for it, and we have posted them on our Facebook so people can find the places where you actually can use reusables. However, looking from a health perspective is a great way of understanding the plastic problem. Yes, healthcare still requires a lot of disposable items. However, in the grand scheme of things, it is much healthier for ourselves and for the planet if we give up single-use items in our everyday lives outside the medical field. There are more and more studies about microscopic plastic particles entering our bodies and the bodies of other animals through plastic packaging, water, and food. So we need to stop prioritizing human health over environmental health. It will affect environmental health one way or the other if we don't care about planet health. And no matter what the pandemic will be doing, single-use plastics remain a tremendous threat to the planet, and it will stay that way until we all come together and resolve it. The bottom line is that I think many people do want to reduce the amount of single-use plastic they generate. They also hate to carry all these bags to their bin. But the problem is, it is just everywhere. It's so overabundant. So that's why we have a list of tips that we like to give to people. And one is start with an easy one. Start buying fruit and veggies only unpackaged and put them in reusable produce bags instead of using off-the-roll produce plastic bags. Shrink wrap packaged produce or produce on styrofoam trays or clear plastic containers. So just give all these things up. Just decide that this is where I'm going to start. And it's not actually really hard. And I swear everything also tastes better. If you want to do takeout food, When doing takeout food in reusable containers, there is an extra step, and the extra step is you have to drop off your containers first at the time of order. And even if it's an extra step, this is your important contribution to stopping takeout plastic waste. You can't get around doing the extra step, and it's not a bad one. Always ask first, even if you're doing it at the same place the second or the third time. Sometimes there's a new staff that hasn't heard about it, and always be enthusiastic if they say yes. Bring a good number of clean containers, include one for sauce. Be picky and remember to say no to any little extra single-use items at the time of order. It's like plastic bags and cutlery and condiments and napkins and all that plastic extra stuff. Some food establishments use laminated cardstock, but these are not recyclable or most often not compostable, and therefore do not count as plastic waste reduction. If staff at a restaurant seems hesitant, which happens all the time, you can ask if they put your food on one of their reusable plates and offer to pack it yourself. Some restaurants even have trays for reusable containers, so they do not touch their counters. Make it a fun family effort, maybe a tradition. Keep a tally of single-use items that you have replaced with reusable ones. And buy local. Quite often, more local means less packaging, because food that travels far requires a lot of packaging. And there are a lot of other good reasons to buy local. I don't have time to go into this. Support any type of reuse, whether it's BYO, deposit and return milk bottles, yogurt jars, or reuse and return containers offered by startup businesses. And reward and praise businesses that allow BYO. Recommend them, shop with them, spread the news about them, thank them, give them a lot of support. And when you go to a new place, even if it seems unlikely, you can always ask, because if many people ask to BYO bags and containers, restaurants and shops will pay attention. So there is a lot to relearn, and it's not always easy. And that's what this slide is about. We need to go out and learn from nature, where nothing gets wasted and everything cycles. So imagine yourself in this chair, and when you switch to reusables, try not to think about it as an extra step. Think about it as a natural step. We have skipped that last step of caring about our waste for too long. The natural step is actually to reuse a container instead of immediately making it a waste item. And it won't be hard or a burden if we do it together, the city and the people and the coffee shops and the restaurants. And starting it now prepares us to phase out single-use plastic altogether. Because this will happen, it will eventually happen, and we have to get away from our dependency on plastic, because single-use items will be eventually banned that don't fit into a circular economy and are harmful for everyone, for all the albatrosses and whales and sea turtles you saw on these horrible pictures, but also for humans and so many other species. So I want to thank you all for listening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. I think that Martin is next up. That was great.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for that great presentation. Really exciting to see the work you're doing in Toronto and how it's spreading. I'm going to try and share my screen here. See if this works. Mm-hmm. Is that working for everybody?
Looks good.
Looks good. Excellent. Well, so I'm a long and thorough bio. Said I'm Martin Bourque. I'm the executive director at the Ecology Center in Berkeley, California. We are on Ohlone land out here in the Bay Area. And we at the Ecology Center have been around for 50 years, and we pioneered the first curbside recycling program, but did that in the context of the then emergent environmental movement in the 1970s, and got founded in the run-up to the first Earth Day. And recycling was one of the major areas that people were focused on at that time, but in the context of reduce, reuse, and then recycle hierarchy, where reduce and reuse are at the top. And for the last 50 years, we've been working on, heavily on the recycling side, and always promoting reduce and reuse. But this ordinance that we got passed in Berkeley, which I'm going to talk about in depth, it's really, trying to make a new run and help kickstart the reuse revolution and restart reuse and focus on reduction. It's clear, particularly as so many packaging formats are going towards plastic, that we can't recycle our way out of the plastic packaging and plastic pollution crisis. We see plastic pollution as part of a larger toxics and fossil fuel nexus of global crises. It's on the same scale with ecosystem collapse, mass extinction, and climate change. And all of those things are interwoven and intertwined, and we see packaging and foodware as one of the things that really hits, it connects to all of those things very directly. So we are a recycling organization, but unlike most companies that provide recycling services that are actually waste companies, we don't have a landfill, and our goals are environmental and social justice. Our mission is to inspire and build a healthy, sustainable, and just future for the East Bay, California, and beyond. And the way we do that is by focusing in on local community-based efforts that have direct impact right here in our hometown, but that have regional, state, national, international ripple effects. And we try and learn from the successes in other communities that are pushing the envelope and bring some of those successes home. And we try and provide models for others to learn from, or to adapt and change and improve on in their community. So that's kind of our model, and a model for change in how we take our local work and help to spread it. I want to recognize that we do have a couple local people on the call tonight. Zero Waste Commissioners Susan Blockman and Zero Waste former president of the Zero Waste Commission and board member of the Ecology Center, Peter Schultz-Allen. Thanks, guys, for joining us, both experts in this field, and have really helped to get this ordinance passed as well. I've said a little bit about the Ecology Center as a place-based organization founded in 1970. It's multi-issue. It sort of is designed on the idea that there's an open public resource center and now store where we engage with people. We do workshops and classes, community events like this one on screen, and a lot of ideas simmer up out of the public and out of our professional relationships with other organizations. And the Ecology Center is often an anchor organization for new initiatives that need a foundation to stand on as they launch and move forward. And there's lots of examples. A few of them were mentioned in my bio, but we see ourselves as kind of a hub and an interconnector and a place to amplify and promote, the ideas and efforts of people in and around the organization. It is global in that we focus on global macro level problems like I was just talking about. And Danae Shorter, who's on the call with us tonight, our community engagement program director, she could tell you, we field questions across the full gamut from, I like to say we cover everything ants to ozone. You know, people coming in wanting to know how to raise chickens in their backyard, and then somebody else walks in and says, is it true about global warming? and everything in between. And so, you know, we focus our sort of heavy lift operational activities. We run the Berkeley farmers markets 3 times a week, but then we've worked to increase food access by matching federal food stamp benefits, SNAP benefits at our markets, and now supporting a statewide program called Market Match, 250 sites around the state, multi-million dollars of money going to help low-income shoppers access fresh fruits and vegetables at farmers markets across California. We have a central justice lens to all the work that we do, and that's been part of the organization since the beginning. We see, you know, as the Ecology Center, once upon a time, ecology was a radical term. And because at its root, it says that everything's interconnected and that people are part of the environment. And rather than looking at things through a natural resource conservation lens of environmentalism, which is an extractive lens, it says, oh, we're going to save these resources so we can use them later. It says, no, we're actually part of that natural environment, and the harms that we do to that, to those ecosystems actually harm us. And so the best way to get to a sustainable, healthy, and just future is by supporting ecosystem health across the board. We work on climate action. We have a number of climate related programs, very locally focused, particularly around building electrification and decarbonization. Again, with a climate equity lens. We have a youth development program that is working to bring up the next generation of young people in our community. And we're really a trusted organization, both in the community and with civic organizations, other nonprofits and NGOs, and with our municipality, our elected officials, county agencies, et cetera. So we often are playing a bridging role between government agencies and community organizations. I mentioned we run the nation's first curbside collection program. It's a dual stream cart-based program. So, you know, we're really focused on producing high quality recyclables in that context. We focus on the highest and best use for those materials. And we have very low contamination rates due to the mode of collection, dual stream separation, separating cans and bottles from paper and cardboard, but also from our education and engagement activities that we have been doing for 40 plus years to keep the community focused and doing it right. And recently we were founding members of the Association of Mission-Based Recyclers, and this is an effort to bring sort of the original recyclers back to the forefront as recycling faces a number of critical crises, bringing the values and like, why do we get in this in the first place? Because there's a lot of things wrong with it right now, and plastic packaging has really messed it up. And so Amber is an effort to bring together some of those mission-based recyclers, nonprofits from around the state who are doing, recycling at scale, but who want it to be done right. And, we're a voice hearkening back to our original roots and values. Here are some of the common things that we share as organizations and our vision for recycling, again, in the context of its reduce, reuse, and then recycle as a last resort. We've been involved in plastics for a really long time, going way back to when the beverage industry wanted to eliminate the refill program we had in California. When I was a kid, you brought glass bottles back to your local retailer and you got a deposit back for those. Those bottles were washed and refilled locally in a very circular refill economy. And they managed to undermine that so that they could scale up and regionalize and move to a plastic-based disposal-based linear recycling model, which is what we currently have in California with our deposit system. It's still great to have a bottle deposit system. I know many of you don't have one of those in your state. It's the only way to really get high capture rates and be able to move towards circularity with those things. But it's, you know, far way down the list in terms of its success compared to a refilling and reuse model. So we have a long, as you can see here, a long track record and history of challenging plastics and plastic recycling, everything from fighting the chasing arrows to the plastic industry's efforts to get recycling programs to collect all plastics. You know, they paint this picture of, you know, I call it plastics in fairyland, you know, of the unicorns and rainbows and how lovely recycling plastic is. It's a toxic mess. And, you know, we do some of it sort of because we have to, but, you know, plastics is fundamentally not recyclable, and it's not really, shouldn't be something we'd be putting our food in a lot. And then there's most of it that actually is not recyclable at all and ends up in our landfills and is incinerated. And increasingly they're talking about plastic to fuel and plastic to roads and, you know, other ways to get rid of this stuff that enable more use of plastic packaging. So we fight against this image of plastics in fairyland and try and, you know, show the true gritty underbelly of it in our work. But really, you know, as I said, we have to, you know, if we're going to recycle, it needs to be the option of last resort, and reduce and reuse need to come first. And so really it started in 2016, a group of folks just getting together and chatting about like, well, what could we do about disposable foodware? And there had been a number of efforts in cities around us, San Francisco and Santa Monica, some others in California, elsewhere, who had said, well, we're going to get rid of the non-recyclable stuff. And so the focus was on making it recyclable or compostable. And so that really pushes towards bioplastics and paper. And it turns out like bioplastics don't degrade in the marine environment, and there's a lot of questionable products out there. Paper, at least at this time for foodware, had lots of plastic lining on it, and also fluorinated compounds like PFAS and PFOAs, and these liners that are highly toxic and, you know, coated with forever chemicals that never leave the environment, never break down persistent organic pollutants. These fluorinated compounds, like similar to Teflon. And that was embedded in a lot of the paper products. So we were really focusing on like, how do we not just do a substitution and say, okay, well, let's get rid of the plastic that's unrecyclable and then have something else that's really not desirable either and has, you know, major other kinds of footprints and impacts. So we took on throwaway culture, as the headline says here. You know, we're looking to really do a reduction ordinance rather than a substitution ordinance. And it has elements of both, as I'll get into in a second. But, you know, what makes it groundbreaking is that it's the first, maybe on the planet, foodware reduction ordinance. And it followed a lot of things we learned in our plastic bag reduction ordinance and work, which we piloted in our farmers markets in 2009, and then worked with the county to get adopted countywide. That then became state law and was ratified by the voters of California. And that's a elimination of the worst single-use disposable carry-out bags, and a charge on reusable, excuse me, paper and plastic bags at the checkout counter. And so the question has shifted in many, not most parts of California, from paper or plastic is not the question they ask, do you need a bag? And that is the fundamental shift that we're trying to get in foodware. Question is not, you know, is this for here to go? It's, do you need a cup? And, we focused in on cups, hot and cold, because they are a large volume of the foodware, but also because it's where we can most easily move to reuse for takeout anyways. And I'll talk about some of the distinctions. So what do we get past? We got this single-use disposable foodware and litter reduction ordinance. And the litter reduction was a key part of the messaging and a pretty critical focus and important point of recognition for a number of reasons, particularly communities that have historically had less street sweeping and less cleanup in their neighborhoods and are often seen as littered or blighted. And a lot of it isn't their fault. It's because they got a bunch of fast food outlets in their neighborhood and not good collection services. So foodware and litter reduction. It had three phases. The first phase that went into effect pretty immediately after adoption was to remove all accessory foodware would be provided only on request. That's straws, utensils, napkins, bags, condiments, etc. You're supposed to only get those if you ask for them. So you've all had this experience where you order some takeout and you're going to take it home where you have utensils and napkins and everything you need, but you get home and there's already 7 forks and 3 spoons and all this other crap in there that you don't need. And so accessory foodware by request only, and that all of the, if you provide disposable foodware and you have self-busing in your food establishment, that you have to have compost and recycling receptacles as well as your waste bin. And that was really to gear up. Our goal as in the recycling side of this was to get all of this unrecyclable plastic out of the recycling stream. And we want it to just go away. But then to also get really clear about what goes in the compost bin. If it touches food, it goes in the compost bin. If it's can or bottle, it goes in the recycling bin. And right now, or leading into this, we did tons of events with compost bins and recycling bins and waste bins, and even with people standing there, and even with good signage, you go and you look in the bins at the end of the day and it looks about the same in all 3 bins. So, really not effective at communicating what goes where and getting people to do it. So we want to make that just super clear and simple. It touches food, it's compost. If it's a can or bottle, it goes in the recycling. And really you shouldn't have any waste. So really the gray can or the black can should go away. January 1st, 2021, all the takeout foodware was required to be BPI certified compostable. And that was really to make sure that it was a high standard for compostability, and also BPI certified does not allow added fluorinated compounds to the paper foodware. It does allow for plastic bioplastics, and that's something that we discussed a lot and decided we were going to leave it in. But what is allowed in here is dependent on what is accepted in our city's composting program. And at some point, our composter will likely say that bioplastics is no longer accepted, and then it will need to be all paper and fiber. And at the same time, all disposable foodware cups, both hot and cold, are required to have a charge on them. And this is the same as our bag ordinance and our California state bag law. You have to pay for a cup. And that's just to really acknowledge that there's a cost to that cup and that there's a cost to disposing that cup. It's also to provide a marketplace for reusable cup programs, like a checkout system, as well as for bring your own cup, and creating an incentive that's very visible for bring your own. And we base that on behavior science that says people respond much more to paying a fee or being penalized for something than they do for getting an incentive like a discount. And the businesses really, they didn't complain about this too much because they get to keep the money, and that charge also helps them pay for the increased cost of their BPI certified But the main thing was they wanted it to be uniform and across the board. They didn't want to be like voluntarily, well, I'll do it, but my neighbor's not. And so now I'm at a disadvantage price-wise to the coffee shop down the street or something. The big one was in July 1st, 2020. All foodware for dining on site needs to be reusable, and that requires dishwashing capacity. And I'm sure all of you have gone someplace, sat down and eaten, and then you look down, there's a huge pile of trash in front of you. And the goal there is to have all of that go away and be reusable. The ordinance also included small business technical assistance. That's provided under contract with the city through Rethink Disposable. And they're still working on these mini grants for reusables and dishwashing to overcome some of the cost barriers of that. And the city's supposed to contract out or pilot on their own a reusable foodware service pilot program. Ecology Center had already been piloting a cup checkout program called Vessel. The staff is also supposed to review and bring back to council in 2023 a proposal around a food container charge, which just seemed a little bit too much to try and get in the first round. What did it take? It took leadership, collaboration, organization, community engagement, responding, a lot of gratitude for all the assets that we have in our community and being able to make something like this happen, and then ongoing vigilance in its enforcement. And I just want to recognize our civic leaders, our mayor and then Vice Mayor Sophie Hahn, amazing advocates for zero waste. And Sophie really helped. She rolled up her sleeves and got really involved in this. And without her championing it and leading it and really guiding us in some ways through some of the trickier political aspects, I don't know that it would have passed. And so having that leadership and those champions within our city council really made a huge difference. But equally, the partnerships and the collaboration that we had, Upstream, Rethink Disposable, Surfrider, Greenpeace, Story of Plastic, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, Plastic Pollution Coalition, others, everybody kind of chimed in with their area of expertise or what resources they could bring to bear. And to get a first like this, you really got to have a lot of credible voices there. And you see Peter Schultz Allen, who's on the call with us here, Jack Macy, City of San Francisco, Krista Torney was our Zero Waste Commissioner. Alan King is excellent packaging company, an actual seller of all packaging products. And he came out and talked about how he hated selling the plastic crap and how he, wanted, even though it was bad for his business, he thought we should support this. Miriam Gordon from Upstream put in a ton of hours on getting the language right. And just everybody on this list did amazing work. Campaign structure, we had broken into kind of 3 phases. Envision, get the ideas cooking, bring all the players together and collaborate, explore different models that might be out there, and do some basic background research to try and get our ideas together. And then really building the campaign was getting everybody aligned and behind the proposal. And, everybody had different ideas, and it was sort of like, well, what can we get past? Plus what would be really innovative and what would actually make an impact? Bring that forward. And we got this champion on city council to bring it forward and get it referred to commission. And then the commission did just an outstanding job of seeking public comment. They had 6 meetings, public hearings, different times and different places for different audiences, got a ton of feedback, and then, go back and adjust and, really listen to that feedback and make changes, which we did. A couple of them were like pulling the food container charge out. It just seemed like it was going to be too far. We got feedback from the disabilities community and around straws and how can we, manage that. And then phase 3 is like getting it over the finish line and, consolidating our efforts and really focusing our attention, defending against the opposition, which, You know, some of the big players came out. And then turning people out to meetings, and, you know, those meetings where they're actually making the decision. We had over an hour public comment. We had 60 pages of written comment, and really supporting it, and then celebrating the win. I think, you know, it is a small campaign. You know, really it was like 10, 15 people who worked, you know, consistently on it. And so we had to really break up the work, and we had a team working on the language, and the city council and commission, making changes, engaging city staff. We had a group working on petition gathering and social media and press work. We had another group working on the business outreach and getting information and feedback from the businesses, the business improvement districts, getting some spokespeople from those businesses to come out and say, hey, this is the right thing to do, or we already do this like everyone else should. And then countering the opposition. So I won't go into too much detail, but we did a lot of surveying. We got a lot of feedback. We were standing on the shoulders of Rethink Disposable, who'd done a lot of outreach, and I encourage you to check out their website and resources and materials. They were very helpful for us. And they led a survey of 60 local affected businesses, over 10% of the affected businesses. That was staffed by volunteers, where they went out and actually got really good, solid information that we could bring back to council and say, look, the businesses, you know, they like this, they don't like this, they'll like it if we do this. We also worked with the business improvement districts. They're the ones who are out there street sweeping and cleaning up their business areas. So, you know, they were for it, but also recognize that their members might individually be against it. So they're in a tricky kind of space. But, you know, Telegraph Business Improvement District collects 75 tons of garbage a year off the streets, and it's mostly foodware. So, you know, and it's a big eyesore, and just, you know, causes a lot of problems. So they, you know, they were supportive, but also, you know, our goal was to keep them neutral, which we actually got support from all three bids in our community. And the Chamber of Commerce actually came out and supported in the end. City staff, you know, just we focused on the storm drains and how much litter they're cleaning up and street sweeping, and how much this would save them. And they got behind it. We have some really strict stormwater requirements that cities are trying to meet, and if they don't, they got to pay big fines. So they could see kind of the direct relationship and direct benefit of this in that arena. And we had some great young activists, the Zero Waste Classroom at Oxford Elementary, Jackie Omania and her crew. These kids were amazing. They came out, they were the most articulate speakers. We were totally prepared, totally on point. They called council out, they called council in. They spoke to the press. They were absolutely amazing, and many of them continue to be active as they get older. You know, being responsive is really critical, just like listening to all the different responses, and then, you know, picking and choosing like where you're going to be flexible. McDonald's, for example, they were like, oh, you know, we don't like it, whatever, but we just want to meet this ASTM 6400 standard. And that would have allowed those fluorinated compounds in. We fought back against that. There, you know, a lot of areas where we kind of had to tweak things, and particularly around the disabled community. And, you know, we had a lot of resources and a lot of capacity in our community. And so just, you know, really being thankful and grateful and support, you know, feeling that it's a real broad community effort. I see Susan there in the background, and Jackie Omania. I think Peter was there that night. So great to have you guys on the call. And now it's really about, you know, enforcement and trying to get, you know, the city's really taking it slow with COVID. We've had 30% of our restaurants close forever or indefinitely, and they really don't want to put, you know, like we apply pressure, like, really, plastics is what you're worried about? Like, we're just worried if this restaurant is ever going to reopen. So it's a tricky time. with that, but we're moving forward, and cities hired some more staff for outreach with businesses, and the approach is really technical training and support, informing and educating, and then they'll get into enforcement. But in the meantime, there's this app, Resourceful. I don't know if you're aware of it, but you can give direct feedback to restaurants through this app, and we've been promoting that. That's really what I wanted to share with you all tonight. Hope I didn't go too long, and that was the right information to share for people's interest tonight, and happy to take questions and answers. All this work would not be possible without our members and donors. So if you're able to help us out, check out ecologycenter.org, ecologycenter.org/donate. Make a contribution. We'd love your support. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Tracy.
That was wonderful. Wow, such wonderful presentations, if I could get any of my words out. I'm going to start with a few of the questions that have, well, let's start with Anne-Marie, because we promised that she would be able to talk a little bit about her experience with her Reduces program in Silicon Valley. So take it away, Anne-Marie, and then we'll go to the questions. And
thanks, Tracy.
there's so much food for thought. It's great.
Yeah, so I went plastic free in 2011, reading about plastic pollution. And then I started my blog, Zero Waste Chef, and my cookbook came out last year. And then right before COVID, Tina had asked me to come and speak for Roncy Reduces, and I'm Canadian, and I was actually had planned a trip to go and see my mom. So that worked out really well. I went and I spoke to Roncy Reduces. And, at the time I thought like this, as soon as she explained it to me, I saw the sticker, I thought, immediately realized, wow, this is brilliant. If I'm going down the street and I see the sticker in the window, I know, I don't have to ask a million questions, and I just hand the container over and say, please put my sandwich here. So then COVID happened, and I had wanted to interview Tina for, since I first met her, for my blog. And, COVID wasn't the best time. And then when things started opening up again, last summer, I interviewed her and we were talking, and I was saying, I wish we had a program like that here. And then I said, I could start a program like that here. And so, I have my sticker. It's backwards. Oh, because, you peel it off and you put it in the window. We just started. I have a bunch of people who are really enthusiastic about helping. I'm in Sunnyvale, and I have a few people in Palo Alto, and actually kind of all over the area, Mountain View and Santa Clara. And reusables are fine here. It's up to the restaurant. So there have been a few restaurants who've said, well, I think this violates health codes. So even though it doesn't, there's that perception that it does. So that's something that we have to explain to them. And we're just getting started, and it's just a great program. And I think that's about all I wanted to say.
Well, a question just came in. Well, actually, this is more for Tina. Any resistance from Tina, another Tina from Albany, any resistance from businesses to putting stickers in the window? Do businesses prefer a paper sign or something else?
The question is about the plastic material.
I guess so.
Yeah, we had discussed that, and I have to say we didn't research too deeply, but for one reason why we went with that sticker is because we could have it made locally. There's a company really close. I could go there with my bike, and they would also be understandable that they wouldn't package it so I could get just a stack of stickers. But I think that's a really valuable question. If you could do any type of paper and that would last, that would be, that's a good point. So no, I have to admit, no, I don't know whether there is a paper sticker that they could use.
Tina says it's more a question of putting something that's hard to remove on a window. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And
Can I jump in?
Of course.
This peels right off. It's just a decal or decal or whatever how you say it. So they don't leave residue.
Okay, great. So we have another question about issues with violations of health department rules, and that's been talked about a lot, but I think that a lot of people are probably concerned about that. If there's anything else either of you would like to say. I think people have a hard time believing that a health department will actually allow this.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a big fear about contamination, and plastic means hygiene, kind of. I think that's how we were brought up, right? It's clean. If it's wrapped 3 times in plastic, it's extra clean. And to overcome this is not easy. And one part of it is regulation. So yes, as I said in my little presentation, it was actually a positive surprise for us that it is not there's no rule about it in Toronto that you can't bring your own container, right? Yeah, I think, of course, every local initiative has to find out what the regulation is, but helping people to overcome that fear is an important part of the work. And that, I mean, Martin said that too. Things wrapped in plastic are not necessarily healthy. They're actually toxic in many cases. And warmed up stuff, if you warm up plastic and all that, that has a whole host of toxicity in it. And that's a new thing we have to learn and to face, right?
I think
that's a good answer. Maybe someone else wants to jump in.
Send out the recording. We'll also send a few links to articles about the health implications of plastic in contact with food, because there's a lot more health researchers looking into phthalates and other things, and the long-term problems that can cause for the people that are eating that plastic contaminated food, as well as their children. So
yeah, I'd like to add a little bit to that. It's not just us as consumers and what's in the plastics and on the plastic. That is a very important toxicity and health issue, but it's also all the communities upstream from us where they've got wellheads in their backyards, like, LA, City of Los Angeles just now this week banned drilling in people's neighborhoods, in some neighborhoods in Los Angeles and Bakersfield. Like, people are living right next to drill heads, and they've been for 50 years. Or, think about places where they don't even have zoning like that in Texas, Louisiana. So the wellheads, the pipelines, the petrochemical processing facilities, for people living in close proximity, plastic is death. It's cancer, it's reproductive harm, it's headaches, it's nausea, it's respiratory illness. And so, yes, there's a body burden that we as consumers get from all this behind me, but it's going out into our environment, it's building up in our food web. And that's where we get to that global level crisis where it is creating havoc in our ecosystems and, leaning into ecosystem collapse and, global toxicity issues where, these PFAS and PFOAs are now found everywhere on the planet. There is no place that you could go. There's nobody's blood on the planet you could test who doesn't have some level of this stuff. And so, you know, we've got to get beyond just thinking about our immediate toxicity issues and think about it in that global petrochemical crisis kind of scale. And the other thing I just want to say on the health departments, because you know, as was mentioned, Alameda County and many other counties in California have, you know, at first came out really hard on no reusables. They even, you know, suspended the plastic bag law. The governor signed a temporary suspense that set us back years in terms of that mentality. And the plastics industry really pushed into it, this idea that plastic was safe and that was going to keep you safe from the coronavirus. And of course, that turned out to be total BS. In fact, the virus lives longer on plastic than other surfaces, turns out. And of course, surface transmission is not the issue. It's an airborne disease. But they still continue to use that whole context to try and get us to think that it's safer in plastic. And we've just got to fight against it. And you know, we did get our health department to reinstate reuse, but we still have the issue, as Tina was talking about, some restaurants may just decide, hey, you know what, even if you let us, even if the health department says it's okay, it's still a liability issue for us and our legal team, our legal department saying no. And so it took a really long time for Starbucks to come back and say, okay, you can bring your own cup again, for example, and we're still fighting an uphill battle against that.
Thanks. And someone, Michelle, wanted to know if anyone has created a doesn't violate health code handout. Boy, I cannot speak. Handout, especially on health department letterhead. And it might be good for us to put together collectively, to put together a little packet to take to the health departments in our areas to help override this concern.
So we have on the Canada Reduces website, we have a health page, and we try to collect all the local information about it. So you find, for example, from Ottawa Reduces, they have what the city of Ottawa did and the city of Toronto code. So if you want to come up with regulations, you can go on our website and look for examples where it is allowed and build from there.
That's great to know.
I wanted to say, you know, kudos to Greenpeace and Upstream for getting that letter out with hundreds of doctors, you know, weighing in on this. We also chimed in and worked with lots of other organizations to get CDC to come out with a clear statement, and then to you know, decades-long work with the California Health Code. And all of, you know, the way it works in California is there's a state code, and then all the counties get to interpret the state code, and they make their own, they have their own rulemaking and guidance. And Berkeley is one of the few cities that has its own health department. So we have the county, the city, the state, and federal. You know, while we've had big wins in getting reusable and bring your own language in there, we still don't have those county guidance in most places. And the restaurants don't want to do anything without the county saying it's okay, because they get whacked and they get fined and they run into problems and permits. And so it's a terrible situation, I think. And, you know, and at least out here, you know, county by county, everybody's kind of interpreting things differently. Like, what does a contamination-free process look like? Well, it could be lots of different things, and the county could make it so onerous that no restaurant's going to do it. Or they can make it really practical and tangible and everyone understands, you know. So getting that county guidance and making it clear and simple and easy, and that kind of handout that you're talking about, being able to bring those with you when you go and say, would you please fill my container? Look, county says it's okay. You know, the barista or server is still going to go, hey, I got to check with my boss, or, you know, corporate at McDonald's says, so it's a lot of work to be done there still.
I just want to say, it might seem insurmountable, but there's much bigger things that have been insurmountable, and we have overcome them. We have a plastic bag ban in New York, and the plastic industry tried to stop that during COVID because it went into effect a year ago, and it ended up going into effect. So, you know, and this year we got a styrofoam ban. So what will it be next year? We have some very specific questions. Are the clear plastic clamshells able to be recycled in Berkeley?
So this is a really technical and wonky deep dive. I'll try and keep it simple. Clamshells, you know, the foodware containers with the hinged. You know, there's number 1 PET resin. There's number 6 unexpanded polystyrene resin, and there's number 3 PVC, which is of course the worst, big nasty one, but you don't see too many of those. You know, if they're not separated apart, there's no market for them. And what most what most operators do in California is they blend the number 1, they optically sort it with, you know, lasers and blowers and high-tech artificial intelligence and all of that, and they're optically sorting PET plastic, which is bottles and thermoforms. And then they sell that as a mixed bale. Now that mixed bale cannot be made back into bottles. It could be made into carpet. It could be made into fleece. It could be made into fabric. But if you want bottle to bottle recycling, it has to be food grade and no thermoform. And so it's a complex question. In Berkeley, it's manually sorted and it's sent to a processor in Texas, and they make it into fiber. It's a very small, unstable market, and I wouldn't say that it's a model by any means. We're trying to do, our goal is to get rid of it. You know, restaurants are not supposed to be using it according to our law. So let's enforce that and just get rid of it. That's really the direction that we want to go.
This webinar is about eliminating single use. And if something's recyclable or compostable, it's still single use. So we want to move to reusables. And that is the strategy that we have to tackle. And it's going to take something. And I think I commend you on those assistance programs that you have in Berkeley, because I think that's what's needed, both small grants and technical assistance and troubleshooting and all that. I had a comment in the registration from actually someone in my town who says, who's been retired from decades in food service. Cost is the primary impediment for small businesses. But then I have another comment from the registrants. What's the pushback? Given this is more cost effective for restaurants, why aren't they making the switch? So which is it?
Well, I would steer people to Rethink Disposables webpage. Their work through Clean Water Action, their work is helping restaurants make the transition from disposable foodware to reusable. And in every single case, the return on investment on going from disposable to reusable pays itself off, you know, most cases in several months, certainly within a couple of years. And that can include dishwashing equipment and, you know, cups and, you know, all the hardware. Staff time is included in that, changes in your water bill or energy bill. It pays for itself. It's way cheaper. But we've been told that disposable is cheaper, and, you know, we've been sold on that, and people really believe it, and they've got all their systems built around it. And, you know, it's a lot harder for some than others. Right.
And some restaurants have very little space, or there's other issues, but we just need to start that conversation, I think.
Yeah.
I have another.
If I can say one little thing, as a part of the conversation is convenience, right? I mean, that people are very heavily dependent on what is the most convenient or fastest way to pack it and ship it or whatever, or give it to someone. And we just need to overcome it. It is less convenient. It might be less convenient if you bring your own container. And as I said in the presentation too, yeah, you have to, if you do a reusable container, whether you use one of the new businesses that try to provide reusable containers, we have a few in Toronto too that do that, which is excellent. But in any case, it has to circle, and we have to participate in that circle. Otherwise, it won't cycle around, right? Otherwise it will be stuck. And that the idea before was just, I don't have to worry about it, just put it in my bin and that's it, right? And the business owners or the staff, they all have to participate, and the consumer has to participate, right? And there is a little loss in convenience, but I think we can handle it.
Yeah. I mean, people are adapting to the ban on plastic bags in New York. A miracle, right?
I mean, when we passed the polystyrene ban in 1986
in California,
in Berkeley,
yeah,
it's because all the fast food restaurants were planning to move to polystyrene clamshells from paper, and we passed this polystyrene ban in 1986. People were out of their minds. The world was going to end. Like, you don't see styrofoam in Berkeley. You know, you just don't see it anywhere. And when it does show up at some new cafe or something, 10 people, the first 10 customers are going to say, what are you doing with this styrene cup? This is ridiculous. You know, it is the absolute cheapest option by an order of magnitude. And so, you know, compared to other cup options. But when you compare it to reusables, it doesn't even compare still. So, you know, kudos to New York for getting a polystyrene ban. Like, we can't get that in the state of California yet, but we're doing it city by city, you know, and you just got to keep at it.
That's how it happened in New York. So I just want to make a plug because someone mentioned this. What about extended producer responsibility? We are opposing extended producer responsibility. We are saying we need to ban stuff that we don't want. We need to tax stuff we don't want. We need to not get into these convoluted programs that in Canada have been a disaster, like in British Columbia. I'm going to be writing an article about this. I'll share it with everyone if I get it before we send out the link to the recording. So I think one last question. Ithaca used to have a robust glass recycling program for decades until they went to single stream recycling. And this person, Jan, wants to know if that's an issue for Berkeley with your dual stream recycling. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. You know, we still hand sort glass into 3 colors so that it can be made bottle to bottle. And state of California gives us a quality incentive payment for that. So there's some support from the state to do it. When you separate, the big issue with single stream, there are many issues, believe me, but the biggest one is that you mix glass and paper. And when you get glass in the paper and then you throw your paper in the big blender that grinds it all up, it's like throwing sand in a blender, you know, it tears up the paper mills and they hate it. So, and in a lot of places there aren't good markets for glass because it's super heavy and you have to transport it really long way. So it becomes, you know, cost ineffective. And then you see these solutions where they're like, oh, well, we'll put it on the landfill as a beneficial use, alternative daily coverage, and we'll call it recycling. And that's a bunch of hooey. That's not recycling. Or we'll turn it into asphalt. You know, is that really recycling? So, you know, it's important to keep the things separated. Really, bottle return systems is the way that we should be getting glass back, and it should be coming back clean and ready for, you know, true high level, best and highest use recycling.
I think we're going to probably be in touch with you. I can report that Zero Waste Capital District, which is Albany, has just begun a conversation about moving to dual stream, which is very exciting. So there are a few more questions, and what I will do is share them with the presenters. There are just a couple, and they're pretty specific. And if we get answers, I'll try and send them at least to the person who asked those questions. So thank you. Are there any final comments anyone wants to make? This information and your experiences were just magnificent. This is just so exciting. And I think we're going to have a lot of other people starting to work on these issues as a result of this webinar. So anything else? Yes.
Yeah, two quick things. It's so exciting to connect, you know, the personal and voluntary and business by business and community organizing. Like, that is super important, and we've all got to push into that. And I want to really commend and appreciate Tina and all your folks' work on that. And then linking that with the other side, which is the public policy side, and creating an even playing field and getting regulation in place that really takes that up to the next level. The other thing I would say is if you want to work on those kind of local municipal ordinances, Upstream is an amazing resource. There is a national network working on reuse and reuse policies. And there are people across the country working on these things. We just had an ordinance passed in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of all this plastic stuff down in Palm Springs, and they put reuse first and then like the transition to compostables second. So, you know, Vancouver, there's ordinances going into effect. So it's happening all over, and in spite of the pandemic, in spite of the sort of plastic resurgence, and we can do it. So really glad to, you know, have the geographic spread on this call, and thank you guys for organizing and inviting us.
Well, thank you so much. I'm thrilled with this whole event. We will be doing something probably on deconstruction in the fall, and possibly some others, and we'll keep everyone who's been involved with this, who attended or registered, we'll let you know about all our subsequent offerings. But we're all volunteers. Yayoi and I are working at this as volunteers. And it's great to work with people who are doing, and I know, Tina, you're a volunteer as well, correct?
That's right.
So anyway, I think thank you all, and we will be in touch. And I'm glad you're all doing such great stuff, and I think there will be more of us. Okay, so I think are there more questions? I'm just going to do a really quick run through, but we will make sure everyone gets everything that was all these questions and all the comments and everything else. So thank you so much, and good night.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.